we'll start with this. I've already recapped this past weekend's action with Natasha Jonas, the champion, and Mikaela Mayer, who should be the newly crowned champion. I've given you my thoughts on that and what happened in the ring, as well as discussed the fallout the following day. The only question left to ask now is, where does Natasha go from here? Because she's still got her belt, and she's still a champion. Does she unify with Sandy Ryan, run it back with Mikaela, or run it back with Terry?
Terry thinks Mikaela won the fight.
I don't think she's fighting any of them. I'm not sure, at least, because both Sandy Ryan and Terry Harper are over there on the matchroom side of things, and those are not easy fights to negotiate. To top it all off, the controversial nature of this past weekend's fight, Natasha's going to want to be the A-side, and she's likely going to want it in Liverpool, and I don't think Sandy and Terry are going to go for that.
Sandy just got jobbed in America in the McCloskey fight. They scored it a draw where she should have won. She just got jobbed in America. She's going to go get jobbed in Liverpool.
No way. And Terry doesn't seem likely to me, because back when Natasha Jonas and Terry Harper were the only two remaining champions at junior middleweight, and a rematch between them would have been for undisputed, Natasha was not receptive. Terry was. Terry and Steffi Bull, they wanted the rematch, but Natasha didn't. She couldn't be bothered. So I don't actually think she's too keen on facing Terry again.
Terry's still at junior middle right now. She's got a title there. She's likely going to pursue unification matches up there.
What about Mikaela Mayer? Does Natasha run it back right away with Mikaela Mayer?
Maybe as a last resort.
The fighters aren't stupid. Neither are their management, members of their team. I think Team Jonas underneath it all knows they were very fortunate to get away with the victory in that fight. In that fight, there were moments I thought that Natasha Jonas might go out and Natasha Jonas might get stopped. That's how many times Mikaela Mayer landed the right hand.
There were times Natasha was tired, breathing with her mouth open, getting backed into the ropes. Mikaela couldn't miss her with the right hand. And underneath it all, I think Tasha and her team, they know they made off like bandits. They know they were very fortunate to get the victory, because that fight happens anywhere else, Mikaela wins a decision.
Not sure that Mikaela's next. A rematch with her is next for Natasha Jonas. There's a couple of names not mentioned here that are worth considering. The name of Jessica McCaskill, one of 3 champions at this weight, and the name of Ivanahabazin, if she beats Jessica McCaskill. They're going to be locking horns very soon in Ivana's native Croatia, and I expect that the winner of that fight might be who Natasha pursues, because the winner of that fight, whoever it is, might seem more beatable than Mikaela Mayer. And a cheaper alternative, perhaps?
Cheaper?
It depends on who wins. If Ivanahabazin beats Jessica McCaskill, even as a champion, I'd wager she might come cheaper than Mikaela Mayer. She might. Now, if it's Jessica who recently tied the knot with her longtime trainer and manager, Rick Ramos, and congratulations to them. Jessica and Rick, they do drive a hard bargain.
It depends on who wins. If Jessica wins and keeps her belts, then Natasha's going to have to pay to play. But if it's Ivana, I think they might be able to get Ivana in the ring for a bit less money than what it costed them to get Mikaela in the ring. Because Ivana, she ain't got a major promoter behind her.
But isn't Jessica McCaskill still with Matchroom? Didn't she ink a multi-fight deal with them going into the Sandy Ryan fight?
What happened with that?
Rumor has it she's not with Matchroom anymore. Rumor has it that after she made some inflammatory comments about Matchroom on The Boxing Voice as it pertained to Alicia Baumgartner's anti-doping fiasco, rumor has it that on that predication, after the Sandy Ryan fight, they cut her loose. They let her go. And anecdotal evidence suggests the rumors might be true, because when her fight with Ivanahabazin went to purse bid, Matchroom didn't bother with it. Matchroom didn't bother to place a bid in.
That's how Ivanahabazin's team was able to acquire it so easily. They were the lone bidders for the fight. So if the rumors are true, and Jessica's not with Matchroom anymore, and she ends up winning this fight, looks like she's free to go to Boxer.
Get jobbed on the cards in Liverpool the same way that Mikaela got jobbed on the cards in Liverpool this past weekend. It could be a swan song for the both of them, for both Jessica and Natasha, because they're getting up there in age. They're already very accomplished. This could be the last year in the sport of boxing for the both of them.
Isn't that what Natasha said after the fight?
It's what she said. So put your thinking caps on, kids. She barely made it past Mikaela Mayer. this weekend. She barely made it past her, and I think a rematch with Michaela is contingent upon whether or not she can get the winner of McCloskey versus Habazin in the ring. I think she'll target that fight first, and depending on what happens with that, that will determine whether or not she fights Michaela for a second time.
We'll see. In men's super lightweight news, Rollie Romero went on the attack after the collapse of what was supposed to be the Ryan Garcia fight, saying Al Heyman is better than drug-addicted con man Oscar De La Hoya. Amazon is better than DAZN. Good luck. P.S. I want my royalties on Oscar De La Fishnet's brand. He thinks he's funny. Some people find him amusing. I don't. I think he's an insult, an affront to the sport of boxing and its rich lineage. I think that Rollie Romero is an insult to the boxing fans' intelligence. As hard as they worked to put that WBA title in his hands, no one really considers Rollie Romero a legitimate champion, a bona fide champion. He talks about Al Heyman being smarter than Oscar De La Hoya, but Al needed Oscar's fighter to sell 1 million pay-per-view buys last year. None of Gervonta Davis's fights did numbers like that, not until he used the fighter that Oscar promoted, that Oscar was grooming. And if you don't believe me, well, let's see what Gervonta Davis's next fight sells. Let's see him hit 1 million pay-per-view buys, really over 1 million, without Ryan. Without Oscar's fighter, I should say.
He says that Amazon is better than DAZN as it pertains to boxing. Amazon is better than DAZN. Well, all right.
Where were the fight dates?
When is your next fight? Why is it that Amazon doesn't seem to have anything planned until all the way out there in March, really at the end of March, really at the beginning of April? Where are the fight dates? Because DAZN, they've already got several fights via Matchroom, via Golden Boy.
And that's this month.
What are the guys on Amazon doing this month? What are the guys on Amazon doing next month? Because we know what the guys on DAZN are doing via DAZN. At least in this part of the world, we're going to get undisputed. We're going to get undisputed at heavyweight. The month after that, we get the big Joshua versus Ngannou fight. That's what we're getting from DAZN. What are we getting from Amazon?
Not a lot. Not until the end of the month.
And we still don't know what we're getting at the end of the month. We still don't know what fight, what card do they have planned for the end of March that's supposed to kick off this big Amazon deal. Now, as it pertains to this Amazon deal, Rick Glacier said, doesn't the PBC make for such great cannon fodder? They really do. Between being in debt $900 million that they are years behind on, they have lost deals with 9 networks, world champions on average that fight every 14 and a half months, top 10 challengers that have not fought in at least 18 months. Their fighters almost always get destroyed when they fight another promoter's fighters. Countless arrests of their fighters. An owner that doesn't talk publicly. Their fans think that Al Heyman is a genius, despite the fact the PBC is $900 million in debt. Heyman doesn't give interviews ever. Hasn't been to PBC events in years. And a rabid fan base that thinks it's great that all the PBC events are on pay-per-view. But those same fans steal the pay-per-views. That is the PBC. And the haters are going to say, I'm a racist because I told the truth. This is boxing, the PBC way.
Now, I've seen that myself. That anybody that's critical of Al Heyman and his PBC is relegated to being a bigot.
Small faction of guys, very small in the greater scheme of things, a substrata that would sooner call you a bigot for criticizing Al Heyman than listen to what you're saying. That this guy frittered away $500 million of Waddle and Reed's money. $900 million by now. It's probably all gone if he didn't steal it.
Because he's such a good businessman.
He doesn't attend events publicly or speak publicly to promote his brand.
Well, because he has nothing to hide.
He's inked several deals with several major networks, big platforms that in the end all decided not to renew with him.
Because his content was so good.
You look at Showtime Boxing. 37 years in the sport, close to 4 decades of boxing on that particular platform, and on Al Heyman's watch, they decided they're done in the sport, they're done with boxing.
It must have been because of all the big numbers he was bringing them, those big ratings.
And how his fighters, more than anybody else's fighters, regularly have lengthy stints of inactivity, some close to 3 years of inactivity. That must be because of what a great manager he is.
And what great advice he's giving them, because he is an advisor. He's a manager, he's an advisor that moves a lot like a promoter. Yeah, that's not a conflict of interest at all.
And we are, you and me, intended to overlook all of this, because if we don't, we bring it up and cite it, we must be bigots.
Are we supposed to pull punches on this guy?
Go easy on him and treat him like the retarded kid in school? Is that what we're supposed to do? Because I thought he was a genius. I thought he was a wizard. The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Boxing. The way some of these guys tell it.
Rollie says that Amazon is better than DAZN.
Really? And what boxing content has Amazon provided for the boxing fans this month? And what about next month and the month after that? Seems like Amazon, as far as boxing fans go, they don't have anything planned for them until the end of March, really, the beginning of April. Is that how much better Amazon is than DAZN? Because DAZN's got cards all the way from the beginning of this year all the way into March. Good cards. Big ones. But Amazon, they're better than DAZN. Why? Because Javante fights there?
And who is he gonna fight there?
And what's it gonna cost me? Because, you know, with DAZN, the majority of DAZN shows, the majority of DAZN cards don't cost an arm and a leg to watch. You hear people complain about what DAZN costs monthly or what it costs annually, but compare that to buying several pay-per-views, $80 a pop, throughout the year, 6 and 7 times a year. Come back and tell me, what's more expensive?
They wouldn't know because they don't buy them.
It's where this skewed perception of what value for money is. When you're stealing all the content, it might seem that $200 or 200 and change for boxing all throughout the year is expensive. You're not calculating what all those pay-per-views you steal cost a year. What does that come to annually, on top of whatever your subscription is? Not every DAZN show, in fact, most DAZN shows, whether they're Golden Boy shows or Matchroom shows, the vast majority of them are not pay-per-views, whereas with Al and his PBC, irrespective of the platform, the majority of what they put out are pay-per-views, all of which run you $80 a pop. So tell me again how Al is a genius for getting kicked off all these major networks, all these major platforms. You know, networks, they don't get rid of content that's bringing them eyes and viewers and ratings. That's not how that works. Even if it's 2 sock puppets.
So long as people are watching them, they're gonna keep them around, which then means if they didn't keep you around, it's because you weren't up to scratch. You weren't bringing them ratings. They felt, we can move on without you. We don't need you.
Must have been because of how good the content was and because of how smart Al Heyman is. I guess in their mind's eye, Heymanites.
Mediocre people that hustle backwards.
Because how could it be a good thing that after 37 years in the sport, on your watch, you ran Showtime Boxing into the ground? How could it be a good thing that a major terrestrial network that reaches millions upon millions of American homes like Fox, how could it be a good thing that they gave you the boot?
And all of that was because of how smart Al Heyman is, right?
Just in keeping with the theme of all things PBC and Amazon, there's a feeling that unbeaten up-and-comer and newly crowned IBF champion Ennis may wash up on the shores of PBC Island. His father, Bozy Ennis, is urging Terrence Crawford to pick up the phone if the Spence rematch is off. We know that not long after their initial meeting, Spence was reported to have activated his rematch clause, but several weeks later...
Several weeks? It's been several months. That fight with Spence and Crawford, that was in the summer of last year.
Doesn't seem like it was that long ago, but it was. It was at the end of July, and several months later, the feeling now is that the Spence rematch may not happen. Crawford hasn't officially said that a Spence rematch is off the table, but he doesn't exactly sound like a man who's ready to run things back. If that's the case, Crawford will be without a dance partner. Luckily for him, Jaren is also free. We stay available, Bozy told YSL.
Well, you stay available, then why weren't you available when Black Prime called you? When Black Prime called you, all you could talk about is how you're loyal to Showtime. Who's now out of boxing?
Jaren Ennis. He strikes me as a fighter of some ability. He's talented. You can see that. How talented has yet to be determined, as his quality of competition, given the number of fights he already has, is really nothing to write home about. And while he's talented, he strikes me as a fighter whose decisions may one day see him painted into a corner.
Bozy says they want Crawford.
And they've been saying that for a long time, all the while fighting in eliminators for a belt Terrence didn't even have at the time. Look, we've been all through that. I never talk about that fight in realistic terms because it doesn't seem realistic to me. I don't really think they want that fight. Though even if they did, on the predication that they're being serious this time, that fight still has several issues, one of which is we don't actually know who Ennis is going with. Is he going with Matchroom? Because Matchroom wants to sign him. Or is he going to go with the PBC? If he goes to the PBC, we don't know that the PBC has the money to make a fight between Ennis and Terrence Crawford happen. The deal with Amazon is rumored to be a distribution deal, meaning they will distribute their content, but they're not actually paying them for it. They're not giving them a budget. And without a major platform giving you a budget, how are you going to give the guarantees to the fighters?
Where's the money gonna come from? Because no guarantee, at least for a guy like Terrence, who's in his mid-30s and has been a champion at 3 weights, undisputed in 2, he's gonna want a guarantee, and I can hardly blame him for that.
You have to wonder if the Ennis people really want this fighter, or are they still dicking around and using his name to have articles written about them? You have to wonder about that. You have to wonder if the PBC actually has the resources to make it happen, and even if they do, would they really want to make that fight? Because commercially, it's not that big. Spence versus Crawford didn't do 1 million pay-per-view buys. It didn't come close to doing 1 million pay-per-view buys. What the hell is Terrence Crawford versus Ennis going to do at the box office? Only hardcore boxing fans even know Ennis exists. It's not that hot a ticket.
What it would take to make, what it would cost, I should say, versus what it could do commercially. Is that a fight the PBC wants to make?
I know what Terrence is going to do, said Ennis. Terrence is going to find the next best fighter that he can make a lot of money with. That's what I would do. My honest opinion is Terrence isn't coming back to 147. I don't think. He may be moving up the junior middle, and we're already hearing preliminary rumors and rumblings about an interest, a passing interest, in facing newly crowned WBO champion Tszyu. For me and my money, that's actually a bigger fight with international revenue attached to it, because we know that Tim, he's a big draw in Australia, and we know that Terrence, he's buzzing in America. So that's 2 separate markets, 2 separate arms of revenue where Terrence could make more money, in my opinion, against the more proven fighter and champion. Tim is an unbeaten champion like Jaren is an unbeaten champion, but Tim's resume and who he's fought so far, those contenders and former champions, it says a lot more about Tim and reveals more about Tim than the opportunistic matchmaking we've seen with Ennis. Jaren is beating who he's supposed to beat and looking how he's supposed to look.
Tim's resume and his schedule of activity is more ambitious than what you see from Jaren.
I'd be more interested to see Terrence climb up to 154 and fight Tim for a new belt than fight Jaren for a belt that he used to hold. Against a somewhat more popular fighter at a 4th weight, the opportunity to become a 4-division champion and cap off your career as one, I like that a bit better than a Ennis fight.